It feels a lot like Peter, who was so feisty in his love for God. And I love, like, he was kind of crazy. Like he was super, I love him actually. But then you look at John, the disciple, who was this like settled friend of God, who said, like, I am his beloved. I'm the beloved of God. Like Jesus, I am his beloved. That to me is the difference of even chasing, like where it gets a little bit like I'm out there chasing, I love you so much, God, I'm going to live for you. And there's so much fervor and there's so much, but it's coming from you, versus the flip side where it's like, actually, I'm the beloved of God. And that means I'm okay to just sit out a minute. I'm okay. There's nothing to chase, actually. I can just receive.
I won't lose hope in the night when the fire's glowing dim. I'll just let go and I'll try. Help me walk this road and find my way back home. Find my way back home.
Welcome back to the Famous at Home podcast. We are in this new season, and the song is just, I love it.
I love it. I love it so much.
If you are in this episode and you're brand new and you haven't listened to the previous week's episode, please jump back, listen to episode 1. We are now doing 7 episode seasons so that we can talk about certain topics and bunch those topics into an entire season. So as Christi talked about last week, she talked about identity. Yes, we're going to get into identity. There's going to be times where Christi hosts the entire 7 episode season because she's talking about women and tender and fierce. There's going to be times I might do it because we're talking about issues with us as men and following God's heart, leading our homes well, leading our wives' hearts well, our kids' hearts, being present. So we just wanted to group them more by topic, each season by topic. And so that's why we're doing 7 episode seasons. We are in episode 2 of this season on Find Your Way Home. It is the new vision for Famous at Home. It's the new mission. And we are here talking about it today, this episode on What Are You Chasing? Because so often we lose our way home by trying to find our identity in other places. And the verse that came to me, I'm just going to say this before I throw it over to you there, is over to you over there, over to you, Christi, way over there. Ecclesiastes 6, I think about this verse a lot. It says this: all of a person's labor is for his stomach, yet the appetite is never satisfied. And I just see that the wisdom of Solomon, it's like we are constantly chasing whatever that thing is, work, money, what people think of us, what we have, food, the addiction. It's like, what is that thing that's holding me back? And yet I never go satisfied. And our heart to help you find your way back home is to the heart of the Father, where we only place that we can be truly satisfied.
And I think the reason we get so confused is because we've been lied to. We've been lied to continually. And it's not just culture. Like, we actually have an enemy that's lying to us. And I'm in like John 8 here, where, Jesus says, like, a slave does not remain in the household forever, but a son does remain forever. So if the son sets you free, you really will be free. And I speak what I've seen in the presence of the Father. So then you do what you have heard from your father. And it comes down here. It's like, why do you not understand what I say? Because you can't listen to my word. Because you are of your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in truth, because there is no truth in him. When he tells a lie, he speaks from his own nature, because he is a liar and the father of lies. And I think It's like, let's just call it out right now. You've been lied to about who you are. You've been lied to about what you need to chase to make all of this in here that feels awful feel better. You've been lied to that this thing will fix the need, the longing, the ache. It's a lie. He speaks lies because that's what it is. But it feels a little bit true. And I think that's,
Well,
we were talking about this just the other night with friends of ours who, you know, it's like even with social media or something where you can come in with the purest motive and it starts to just get twisted a little with a little bit of a lie. Like I came in with such a pure heart and intention, and then but that kind of felt good because I got a whole lot of response to that. And now I'm starting to chase a little bit more of that response because that did something to my ego, my pride. It comes back to like how I think of me. And I think this is where we've gotten it so wrong. And the Lord's like given us like a whole book with words of like what he thinks of us. And we're still out there chasing from someone else. Tell me what you think of me. Like someone tell me. And we're just humans. Like who cares what a human thinks of you? But that's the lie, is that matters because these are the faces that we see around us.
And I'll tell you, to that point, something that just came to my mind was we have dear friends of ours who are probably even listening to this podcast, and they are on their beginning journey of understanding who Jesus is, what the Bible's all about. And they were visiting the other week, and I remember as they were getting ready to leave, I remember saying to them, I said, you know, here's what's cool about that Bible. Even though you don't fully understand everything in it, and there's a lot of weird stuff in it, culturally speaking, you know, you got to put it in context and whatnot. There's a lot of weird stuff in it. I just want you to remember this. Those are 66 love letters from the Father's heart to you. And that's what this is. This is the truth about who it, the whole Bible from beginning to end is about the Father's pursuit of us and our hearts, why he created us from the very beginning, and how he redeemed us through sending his son Jesus, and the price that needed to be paid for him to do that. He had to give up his son. He had to surrender him. He had to sacrifice him to get, and now here we are living to be free indeed. And that's what this thing is all about. And what happens, though, is that we believe the lie of the world that everything else is what we need to be chasing, that we will find true happiness and true fulfillment. And where we felt that early on in our marriage was when Christi, who's a career woman who has 2 master's degrees, has this was amazing. I'm
laughing. I've never ever considered myself a career woman, but that's really
let's
funny
go back.
that.
Let's go back. Let's take
I
a little. Let's rewind.
Yeah.
We're gonna go back in time to premarital counseling.
Oh, that's
when I talked about sex beginning in the kitchen. I didn't
you
talk about
did
it.
it.
Our premarital counselors were talking about sex beginning in the kitchen. And my phrase was, I have to first get her in the kitchen in order for that to happen, because she was so hell-bent on not being in the kitchen, not being a domesticated wife, not falling into the stereotypical, right? It's like, and so.
I don't know where that came from, actually, because here I am now. I'm like, I homeschool my kids. I like have our chickens and our ducks, and I love.
Remember when you were pregnant and making sourdough bread and like
I was like literally pregnant, barefoot, making my sourdough, like living my best life. But that's how far I think.
Me too, because sex actually does begin in the kitchen.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's stay on target. Okay, so I think for me it was this journey. I mean, I grew up in Canada, worked in like near Toronto, and it was actually very much. I'd done schooling, and I guess I was sort of a career person young. I mean, aren't we all? We kind of start It's like, what else do you do? I mean,
Right.
you
Yeah,
have to
totally.
work.
Well,
but-
and that's the statement that's from the very beginning of it. What are you going to be when you grow up?
yeah. What do you,
From kindergarten on,
what do you
preschool
do?
on, what do you do?
And then as we grow up, what
Totally.
do you do? And I think that did get really seeded into me. Actually, I remember in high school. Do you remember when you meet with those career counselor, your guidance counselor? Is that what they call them? That's what we call them in Canada.
Yeah, guidance counselor. Yeah.
Okay. So, and I remember it's like, well, what do you want to be? Like, what do you want to pursue? And it was like, oh gosh, I guess I have to pick something. And I remember picking I played volleyball at the time. So I was like kinesiology because I loved like the human body and like how it worked and all this stuff. And so I went and I was a kinesiology major in undergrad. And then I did a psych minor just because I was so interested in it. And then I realized that's actually what I really wanted. Like I was so fascinated by it, but it was totally secular. It had literally no place for God. It was so, I worked for an atheist for those first years and I was so burnt out. I was working with chronic pain patients and I would travel. I'd do 5 flights a week traveling across the country to see these patients. And it was awful working for an atheist who like indoctrinated that, world renowned in what he did. And so we had to be trained under that model. And I was so burnt out. I remember just getting to a place of like total brokenness and tears, no peace. Like I remember telling my mom, I don't feel peace anymore. Like I haven't felt peace in so long. I don't even know where it is. And the Lord brought me to this Christian leadership, I guess, sort of training. I literally quit my job and I went to this, and it was in the US. And then I heard about that Christian marriage and family therapy was a thing. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, could it possibly be? But even in that, it was still this world that was pushing you towards doing something and being something. And I just kept trying to find the box that I fit in. Like this didn't work and this didn't work. I did research for a long time before that. And I was like, it was all kind of interesting, but I was like, you're trying to find your place where you fit. And then I did my master's, and that's where Josh and I met. And I think it was still in that frame of mind where it's like, well, you can't slow me down from my career, from my
which
path.
is what the world will say. Like you got to do this. And this is where it puts, I think, women in particular in a bind, because now all of a sudden, and this is why I took it to us on this chase idea. What are you chasing? Is because Christi is now, we have Landon who's 12, but in those early years when we first had him, you felt stuck at home. Yep. You felt like you had lost your identity. Totally. I'm out doing the stuff. I'm out writing and working and I have my outlet, and you felt stuck at home. And I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about that chase, that identity chase that you're wrestling with even early on with like, I've had this career, I've been pursuing all of these things, and now all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I always wanted to be a mom. I get to be a mom. Right. This is a privilege, but I feel like I shouldn't have this. I feel like I shouldn't feel this way. And now you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I feel like there are a lot of people, we see this a lot. A lot of people get stuck in this spot of, when your identity is in that and in the world, you're going to feel that way in that particular spot in that moment.
Because you realize I just saw your shirt, like there is a glory that comes with human applause, right? Where it's like, oh, good for you. And it doesn't take many good for yous for you to like imprint in your soul, like, oh yeah, that's the right thing to do. Because my professor, my guidance counselor, my boss, my parents, like they've all said like, good for you. You're taking the right thing. You're pursuing the right thing, and realizing that's a person telling you the path that you're to pursue, not your maker, not your creator. And so much grace over all of us. How would we know anything different?
We live in a matrix. I mean, that's reality. You live in a matrix that is telling you that you are culturally programmed.
Total, absolutely. And I think that's where, and coming in this like young adults, like these seasons of searching, and so I look back, I'm not even grieved for that. I'm grieved for the woman who was at home with her newborn baby and felt unable to experience the joy because I had no idea where I fit anymore. I feel grieved that I lost some of the just pure delight and innocence of those years. But at the same time, I look back now and it took a season of suffering to get me to where I am. It took a season of hitting rock bottom to be so delighted in the ability to homeschool my kids and make sourdough and feel like I'm crushing it when I'm doing those things. And I don't need the other stuff. Like we talked about last, like we were ready to, I wanted to just let this all burn. Cause I was like, I just want to stay home. I just want to be with my kids. It literally lost its appeal. I don't want it anymore. And I think that's exactly when the Lord gives it back to you. Cause he's like, great, now I can trust you with it because you don't need it, because it's not about you. I've still called you to the same thing. Probably it was in you to begin with, but you were chasing it like an idol. And I had to burn the idol for me to give it back to you in a pure way that I can trust you with it. And it's not on a pillar or something anymore. And I also think too, I want to speak to women just real fast. I just want to lose this point because I do believe the Lord asks us to put things on a shelf for seasons. And sometimes the seasons are long. And sometimes it is really hard because you have beautiful giftings and you have beautiful things to put into the world. This is for all of us, but I see it especially in women because I believe we're called to mother and we're called to nurture. And you cannot do all things and be all things to all people at the same time. So there are seasons. When it talks about there's a season to plant and a season to uproot, there is a season for everything under heaven. And you need to know the season he's calling you into. And sometimes it's just a season of surrender where it's like, shh. Like, how long did I stay at home, quiet, hidden? And I felt no purpose outside of the home. And that was a wrestle. I look back now and I know that was my deliverance because he was delivering me from stuff back there that couldn't go with me, because if it did, it would kill me. Like if it did, this would all be tainted because I'm like chasing something. I'm like trying to get after something. And so how many times we get the question, it's moms working from home, staying home, and there's so much competition of like, I do this and I do that. There is nothing is elevated. It is, but what is elevated, in my opinion, when the Lord says, obey me, and he says, follow me and take up your cross and crucify your flesh. And if your flesh is like, but I need to be needed, then I would ask, is that what he's asking you to surrender? And when we actually obey in those seasons of, I'm asking you to put this on the shelf, I'm asking you to sit quiet, I'm asking you to stay home, because the thing that I'm birthing in you isn't done yet. And I don't just mean babies. I mean all of it, like the character in you, the word in you. Like there are things that have to come to full gestation. And if they don't, when they come, if they're birthed, they don't survive. And I think there is a whole generation of women that are trying to be all things in all seasons, and they are burning out. And it grieves me because I think sometimes it's just the Lord saying, come home. Like I'm calling you back home. Girl, you have got so much in you, but it's not time yet. And I need you to listen to me. I need you to sit at my feet. I need you to hold your babies. I need you to make another meal. I need you to fold another load of laundry and call it not just obedience and surrender and I'm doing this for you, but can you call it joy? Can you call it, this is my gift? This is my delight. This is how Jesus served. He washed feet. So why are we above it? And I think for sure as a culture, we've lost that perspective. And as we're talking about dying, or, as we're talking about chasing, I think the flip side is really, it is a surrender and a dying to self, because the chase is his heart. The chase is his will. The chase is him. And if we get that twisted, even under the guise of my purpose, my, the thing that God has put in for me to do on this earth, it feels a lot like Peter, who was so feisty in his love for God. And I love, he was kind of crazy. Like he was super, I love him actually. But then you look at John, the disciple, who was this like settled friend of God, who said like, I am his beloved. I am the beloved of God. Like Jesus, I am his beloved. And that to me is the difference of even chasing, like where it gets a little bit, like I'm out there chasing, I love you so much, God, I'm going to live for you. And there's so much fervor and there's so much, but it's coming from you, versus the flip side where it's like, actually, I'm the beloved of God. And that means I'm okay to just sit out a minute. I'm okay. I'm not, there's nothing to chase, actually. I can just receive. And when he tells me, okay, now it's time to go, I'm ready to run.
That's a word. That's a word for somebody.
It's a word for me.
I am thinking about that in relation to, and I want to say this as we talk about chasing, as we talk about identity, as we talk about how providing the solution for families, is that just because we homeschool, just because we sometimes make sourdough bread, just because sometimes we, live on a homestead and we've kind of done the things we've done.
Yeah.
That's not the solution for your family, right? The solution for your family is found in the secret place. It is found in the you pursuing of God for what your family is called to. Your family may very well be called to the travel sports scene. Your family may very well be called to public school. Your family may very well be called to some of the rat race that we find in our society today. Your family may be called to that. You have to know that, though. And the question that I would ask is that what he's calling you to, or has that just been your default? And so I think that's where, because if it's just the default, you're not going to find near the peace that you can find when he's calling you to it and asking you to be in it. And even with schooling, we get to ask this a lot. What about with private, public, homeschool, all these things? 1 year, one child at a time. And you pray into 1 year, one child at a time. And you go by the way the Lord is leading you. You go by the way of peace. James 3:17 says, wisdom from above is first peace, pure and peaceable. So you seek the wisdom from above. And that's the way that we're talking about here, is that we seek these things first. And yes, we have these coaching strategies. We have these psychological, emotional intelligence tools that we can use. But ultimately, we need to be pursuing the Lord and his will for each of us. Mm-hmm. For me, my identity was wrapped up in the speaking. It was wrapped up in and I enjoy speaking. It's one of the places I come alive. But when your identity is in it, and this was years ago, I tell this story in the book Famous at Home. I remember being with Landon, who was 4 at the time. This is about 8 years ago. And I remember it was the fall season, similar to what it is now, and everyone's out speaking, and I'm looking online at these conferences and what's going on, and I'm at home with my 4-year-old, which there's nowhere else in the world I'd rather be. And I genuinely mean that today. I would have said that back then. I wouldn't have felt it the way that I feel it today. And over these last 8 years, the Lord has just guided me to stay slow. The reason I say that I was on that island of Sodor moment was because I remember asking Lane, I put my phone away. I ended up spending like 2 hours on the island of Sodor on Thomas the Train that day. And I remember asking Landon that night before bed. Actually, he asked me first. I didn't even get the chance to ask him. He said, Daddy, what was your favorite part of the day? And I knew in that moment, had tears streaming down my face, because I knew in that moment that the most favorite part of my day that day was playing trains. And it was the thing that I was most resisting to do, because I wanted to be somewhere else. I wanted to be chasing something else. And I think what the Lord has done over these last 8 years is he's kept us small. He's kept us lean. He's kept us slow in order to do the work in me the way that he's done the work in her, for us to now build Famous at Home in a way that is not mine. It looks nothing like I ever thought that it would, but it looks so much more fun and joyful and not as serious and not as like putting on a doctor's coat anymore. It's like, oh no, this is cool, God. But he had to do that work in me. And that's the surrender Christi's talking about. And I say that to men as well. That's what this whole discipleship journey that we're getting ready to start is going to be about. I'd love for you in the show notes to sign up. If you're a husband and a father and you're interested in joining me on this journey, this will be an ongoing journey. The app is coming. There's going to be push notifications for just tasks that we get to do each day, just fun stuff. Man, it's going to be joyful. It's going to be the most joyful thing I think you've ever been a part of. At least that's what I hope, because that's what I'm trying to bring to this whole journey. We don't want these things to feel heavy. We want them to feel joy, because that's the call of the Father for us. It's like, hey, son, daughter, come here. If you're getting the sense of, oh, you didn't read your Bible today, you didn't do this today, there wasn't enough time for this, that's the condemnation. He's the accuser. The enemy is the accuser. He will accuse you of doing things. That will never come from the Father. The Father will say, I missed you. I missed you today. I actually wrote a blog. I actually wrote a devotional on that a few weeks ago, on that very thing. I was riding on the tractor, and I started praying, and I just heard the Lord say, I've missed you. And it was because I wasn't spending as much time with him, sitting with him, just listening to him, and just being with him in the ways that I had connected with him before. And I want to show that out too. Go to thefamousHome.com. If you're not part of our email list, we'd love for you to subscribe there. We send out weekly devotionals as well as updates on what's happening podcast-wise, what's happening with Tender and Fierce, and all of the things. So make sure you sign up there for that. But
your devotionals every week are so beautiful. I want to say that. I don't know how I cry most of the time.
They're Holy Spirit given, because I never know what I'm writing about.
It's incredible.
Until that morning.
And I just want to add this real fast. For those women who are listening, who feel like, that sounds great, I'd really love to not chase the things that I'm chasing, or I don't even know what I'm chasing, look into Tender and Fierce. Tender and Fierce is a journey back to who you really are through connecting you back to the Father. But there's so many layers of hurt and wound and just survival strategies that we've had to accumulate over the years to get you where you are. And like, bless God that your body and nervous system have all protected you to get you where you are. But those things don't serve us anymore. And I really believe the Lord heals us in layers. And it's like taking off the outside layers of an onion so we can start to get into who you really are in the middle. And that's what I don't want to just gloss over, like, I just died to myself and now I feel like I'm free in my identity. Let me tell you how many years of delayering it's taken, you walk through hard stuff. Mm-hmm. And I just don't want to gloss over that and make that sound like this is so easy, fast. Obviously none of that is true, but it's so worthwhile and possible. I have walked women through, I have gotten to witness women walk through these, even just 8 weeks with Tender and Fierce, the way it's structured right now. And it is the most beautifully redemptive thing when you incorporate the Spirit of God into your healing and I'm all for counseling is wonderful. Therapy is great. You have to have the Spirit of God partner with you in that healing to what it just expedites in a way, connects things. He knows the order in which he wants to heal you, the things he wants to go after, and how he does it is so beautiful and detailed, and expedited is the word I just keep thinking of. And I think, so I just say that over you. If that feels like I don't really know where to go from here, look at that. It might be for you. And there are ways to get you back home where you want to go. And there is a path, I think is what I want to say. Like, there is a way to get there.
And logistically, I'll just say, you can sign up on the interest list. We put that in the show notes today, because that next 8-week cohort will have details on when that is starting coming up. But I would just say, as it relates to the chase, we've talked about this so often, but I go back to, and I actually wrote this in the book, when P.T. Barnum in The Greatest Showman is sitting on his rooftop with his wife and his 2 girls, and I think it was one of the girls' birthdays actually, and they're running through these sheets. They don't have a lot. They don't have a lot of money. They're on the rooftop of this apartment that they're renting, and there's light shining on the sheets so they can kind of make these figures, and it's just this beautiful, joyful moment. But they do such great cinematography where they take you into P.T. Barnum's inner world, and you can just see that he's physically present, but he's not emotionally present, because what he's chasing is bigger with the circus. He's chasing more money. He's chasing more notoriety. He's chasing more. But ultimately what he's also chasing is to prove his father-in-law wrong, who told him from when he was a little kid, who he knew from a very little kid, who basically told him, you're nothing in society. And he believed that lie about himself to the point that it almost broke him. And he was chasing and he wasn't fully present. And I think that happens to a lot of us, where there's lies that we believe when we're not grounded in truth. We're not grounded in who we are and in our identity. There are lies that we tend to believe that leave us chasing. And what happens is there's a ripple down effect into your family's lives, into the quality of your marriage, and into the relationship you have with your kids. And what we're saying is we want that to break, and we want that to stop for you, so that your family can feel fully revived and not feel that trickle down effect of even your chase. You can be set free from whatever it is right now that you know that you are chasing. Whatever it is right now you feel guilty for, convicted about, whatever it is that you are experiencing right now, there is freedom. The Father is saying, come. The Father is saying, oh, son, daughter, that thing helped you get through the difficult times, but it's not going to help you anymore. It can only take you so far. Yes, you might have befriended it because it did help you. It did serve you well. But listen, I've got so much more for you, which is why in this song, you're going to hear the outro come out, but we love playing the bridge as the outro to this, because it really speaks to everything that we're talking about. All the fears and lies, I leave them all behind. With you, I find my way home. I won't change my mind till the day I die. With you, I find my way home. That is my prayer for you today as we try to identify our chase and hear the loving, tender call of the Father for us to come back home.
Until next week, pray your heart is awakened and your family sees revival.
May you find your way home.
All the fear that